Site realhistorywww.com. But I'm gonna be real quick with this, okay? Right here you see the Black Lenape / Delaware tribes of India. All right, but I'm gonna go further over. I'm gonna make a quick reading of this. I want you to emphasize. Listen to this now. This is something I've been known, but Negroes will continue to say that you're a descendant of African slaves. I want to throw up when I hear that mess. But here we go. The Seminoles. As typical with nonsense white man history, there is seeming need by whites to denigrate blacks, whereby any blacks not in continental Africa are declared to have been brought there as slaves. This is not an innocent declaration brought about by ignorance. Quite the contrary. Post-Columbian Europeans encountered in Americas teeming with blacks. They wrote about them, painted pictures of them, collected their artifacts, and also counted them in their census. Yet there are any number of Seminole histories which declare that the so-called Black Seminoles are a tribe of runaway slaves who latch unto the real Seminole tribe. Sadly, it may be that the Seminoles themselves, like so many indigenous black people, have lost their own history and may not even know any better, thereby believing it. But that bit of white man nonsense is about as far away from the truth as you can get. According to scientific evidence, the Black Seminoles were the first people to settle in North America, Florida, at a time when the rest of the North was still under glaciers. More than 10,000 years ago, we cannot provide a history or culture for the Seminoles because all the available material is corrupted with nonsense like they were runaway slaves, they moved to Florida, the almost total confusion with neighboring Amerindian tribes, etc. All right, here's some Black Floridians or Seminoles. All right, and I'm gonna go on. Brother Abraham, John Horse. Notice like the little wrap on his head, but I'm gonna go further over and I'm gonna read unto this, right? Note that in addition to the admixture of figures, this census, I have the census right here, and I may talk about that another time, clearly demonstrates the albino lie that the majority of America's blacks are African. I repeat, note that in addition to the admixture figures, this census, and this is census over here, numerous census over here from the 1800s, 1860, clearly demonstrates the albino lie that the majority of American blacks are Africans. Ditto, black Cubans and the blacks of Haiti, which we were all taught was 100% African. Black North American Indians were exported to Barbados. The large indigenous black population of Americas were destroyed by murder and disease due to overwork and malnutrition, not European disease, just like the Amerindian population. However, whereas blacks were originally the most numerous people in the Americas, today the population is inferior to that of the Mongol extractive Native Americans. Some thoughts on why that is are explored. But here it is, the American genocide. At the time of Columbus landing in the Americas in 1492, the population of the hemisphere was approximately 100 million people, 6 million in the Caribbean, 10 million in the United States and Canada, 40 million in Mexico and Central America, and 44 million in South America. By 1650, the Indian population of the Caribbean, Mexico, Central America, and South America was approximately 15 million people. Today, the Amerindian population of the Caribbean is all but extinct. But 1901, the Indian population of the United States and Canada was only 1 million people. The whole thing didn't print out, it sort of cut it out. Systematic killings for the land and goods. being killed through the overwork and malnutrition of slavery and the use of disease as a biological weapon, whereas indigenous Americans were purposefully infested with smallpox and other such diseases. The binders will give blank clothing of Europeans with blank clothing of smallpox of Europeans killed by diseases like smallpox and measles to impoverish indigenous Americans, whereas immune systems were all but weak because of overwork and malnutrition. These methods killed almost 9 of every 10 people. Or I'm going to stop there because the full page wasn't really cut, or it didn't really come out clearly. But what this talks about is that the fact is, and I mentioned this before, because I had books on the Lenape and Eastern Indian tribes, and they show you the pictures of the people, how they look like. They're black. I mean, this ain't for debate, man. I'm hearing Negroes in New Orleans say, well, there were black people 300 years before white people. And there was black people here for over 100,000 years before white people. All right? And I should have put this in landscape. Or, yeah, the longer model. Because it's cutting off at the edges. But, and it also had the chart, but the chart came out so small, so I cannot read it to you on here. I'm going to have my magnifying glass. But it breaks down the black population was already here, man. And how these numbers were inflated, man. And how they lied to you, how Europeans just killed off the black population here like that, and they just died off, which is a lie, all right? I can remember stories as a kid when they said they used Indians as slaves first, but then they died off, or they weren't working efficiently, so they brought in some Africans to work the cotton field. So they're gonna some foreigners gonna work the cotton field better than the Aboriginal people here. I said this before in so many other videos. The majority of black Americans are descended from the Southeast Indians. Some from the West Coast and some from the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast and the Midwest. But majority of your black Americans are descended from the Southeast Indians. And a lot of them end up mixing with a lot of your black people from Scotland and all that stuff. So a lot of black Americans are a mixture, because some of my people are straight Aboriginal Indian, but then many of a mixture of black Indians here, and then the black people from Europe who mixed in with them. All right, there's very few Africans that came near. They were absorbed into the black population that was already in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, the Carolinas, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania. Forget about Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. There was Negroes already there. Michigan. I showed you images of the Chippewa before. We got to stop this, man. And when I hear Negroes who just want to say they're African, like I said, they're taking away your Aboriginal identity here in America. This is from realhistory.www.com. It was an exceptional website. I got so many other books that I'm going to use, but I want to present it in a way that you can grasp and understand it, the information I'm giving. But it's so much proof that majority of us already here. And when you look at us, we look physically different than a lot of the Africans you see in West Africa. We don't look like them. All right? I don't know what Negroes will tell you that we look like them. No, we don't look like them. And I hate when these idiot individuals want to basically just lump all so-called black people into one pot, because we are very diverse, not only globally, but we're very diverse here in America. There's very different types of physical features of so-called black people here in America. It wasn't one type. All right, it wasn't one type. And we also need to be truthful to ourselves. There were white people brought over here as slaves. All right? Got to stop this. There were white people brought over here as slaves, and you had black masters. Got to stop it. That was true. That's a fact. And I showed you images of that in older videos. All right, so Negroes need to stop that mess, man. Your original slaves were white. All right, and you did have black slave masters.